For some photographers, the idea of flying around the world and making pictures is deeply motivating. And there was a time in my life where that was something that I really wanted to do. But as I get older and as I made more pictures in places that were not the places that I was familiar with, I learned very quickly that to represent a place well, I had to invest a substantial amount of time, and just flying in for a week or two isn't enough to really photograph and understand a place or culture or landscape. This past month, I got a grant to go to Iceland. Part of the grant was to prepare for a class that I'm going to teach in the future about photographing the environment, thinking about the impact of humans on the environment and how photography can play a role in that. So going to Iceland, I felt like was the perfect place to teach a class like this, to see a broad spectrum of types of environment. I had it in my mind that this place was going to be jaw-dropping, that the landscape was going to be lush and beautiful and all these blues and waterfalls and all these different things. But in reality, the landscape in Iceland is much more complex. And I only spent a week on basically one peninsula. This to me was much more interesting than what my expectations were. Traveling to another place, I think it's so important that you see the place for what it is and not what you want it to be. And that means not making pictures to fulfill what your expectation was, but rather react to what the place is. Now, I think that we are falling into a long history of photographers that parachute into a place, make a few pictures, and then try to pass those pictures off as being accurate to the place. And for me, that's not what I do anymore. Going to a place like Iceland for a week was more about having time away from my home, having time away from my family, and meditating on the experience of being in a foreign country, in another land, with a different landscape. And honestly, that experience, that meditative process was very revealing to me and how I think and feel about my place in the world. So I think that maybe my presupposition of Iceland was just this beautiful, majestic place, but I found it to be very intimidating. I found the landscape to be somewhat brutal at times. The thought that we as people are conquering a place or owning a place seems laughable whenever I walk through a large lava field or walking up the side of a mountain that there's not a human in sight as far as I can see. The place there really commanded attention. It, in a lot of ways, was really intimidating to me. And I realized that I'm still very, very small in this whole thing. So I think that if you're going to travel and you're going to make work and you're going to make pictures, it's so important to realize that your experience in this place is more so probably what you're photographing than accurately documenting the place in a small amount of time. If you want to accurately document a place, then I think you have to be somewhat systematic. You have to spend a substantial amount of time in that place. For me, I only had a week. And so to make work in a week was more a process of meditating on that experience, was reacting to a place that I was unfamiliar with. And in a lot of ways, it was contemplating my own place in the world, however small that might be. So I would encourage you, if you do travel with a camera and you are making pictures in a place that is not familiar to you, I would say first start out and do as much research as possible. Go in knowing as much as you can know. Second, I would say be really open to what the experience has to give to you. And that can change even if you go to the same place multiple times. You can learn and experience new things. Third, I would say photographs with that experience in mind, not what you want the experience to be. I was driving down a road in the middle of nowhere, and it's very taboo to park in the road in Iceland because you could easily top a hill and run into someone, and it could be really bad. So I topped a hill and there was a car parked in the middle of the road, and I thought, this is dangerous and probably a tourist. And it was a tourist. It was a man and a woman, and he was filming her in the road, spinning around and making some thing for social media as an influencer. And I thought, those people don't really care about what this place is as much as they want to look cool. They want to look at, like influencers in this country that's supposed to be so majestic and beautiful. And it was really sad to me because not only were they endangering people's lives by stopping in the middle of the road, but also they were missing the real beauty and the terror of a place like this, of a landscape like this. They were missing what I would assume the experience was like when the earliest, settlers came to Iceland and saw these huge mountains that were hewn and shaped by glaciers passing through. I can only imagine what these people must have thought when they saw the first, dried lava fields from volcanoes that had erupted thousands and thousands of years before. In some way, I felt the slightest connection to that shocking experience that maybe these people had all these years ago. And so I hope that if you decide to have an experience and to go to another place, that you would try to be in awe and see it for what it is, and not try to force it into something else. And also interpret that experience as being very personal. It's not necessarily universal. Your experience is not universally true to the place, but your experience with this new place is an opportunity for you to discover something about yourself and your place in the world. So I hope that you like some of these pictures. I don't know if they're good or not, but they're honest. They're what I experienced. And I'm really looking forward to trying to do something with these pictures, maybe make a small book, even if it's just for me, because that's a lot of how I like to deal with my photographs, is to turn it into a book. So thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon.